Hi, I'm going to try and explain or delineate um, what I've understood, what I've learned about control, or describing the psychology of control. So, first of all, I'll just start with some definitions. Control, defined, so authority, command, regulation, a check, a means of operating, regulating, directing, um, controlled experiments, how an aerofoil helps an aeroplane, the act or power of controlling, the state of being controlled. You can have a control room, control tower, levers, sticks, a program, like a control unit in a computer. It interprets and executes programs. Even something called a control mark, a disembodied spirit or other agency. So, right, that's the word control. Psychology, and now I'm going to just define psychology. Psychology, the study of the mind, the science of the mind, and then you've got that connected to the study of mind control. Just a few definitions to start off. So it's quite a big picture. Like some people have said, it's like layers of an onion. So I'm just gonna explain some of the many factors or many things that come into this. So first one, lack of non-violent communication skills. So if you can't communicate in a nice way to get your needs met, you're going to have a lot of arguments and disputes, or all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But here's an idea. So let's say you're thirsty, or the room's hot, and you might say to somebody with you, "I'm thirsty. I noticed this room's very hot. Oh, I feel like I really need a drink, and I feel like we need to turn the heater off or open the window because I feel hot and stuff." And then you would say, could you please turn down the heater? Could you please get me a glass of water so that I can get my needs met? That's like a non-violent way of trying to do it. Whereas if you don't have those skills, you might say, "Gee, so and so, you got that heater on again. Oh man," it's going to get in those. If you don't have communication skills that are non-violent, it's hard to get your needs met. You might call just things can get rough. Right. Second one, religions. So I think that we do need the true religion, Jesus Christ, but the other religions are not helping. So because it's like an institution, it controls you, it indoctrinates you and stuff. So I'll let that one go. Right. Language, communication signals. So the words people have to communicate, like in courts, how you have a preset language, the whole way a court works, adversarial, competitive, special language, laws, regulations. So language is really powerful. Right. Next one, food. So you've got like food at the supermarket. Now, I just hazard a guess, 20% of the food at the supermarket, the junk food, that's not good for people's mental health or physical health. So food can come into the describing the psychology of control. Books. Now, if you can read a few pages of various books, you start to get an idea of the world, a new perspective. So books are quite powerful like that. And people talk about some books being hard to get because some wise books have a point of view on life that's going to really change the way you understand the world. So books can promote different understandings when people read. Next one, secrecy. Okay, occulting of knowledge, and it is true when you've got rules and oaths about who can know what and secrets kept by groups or institutions or the government, that secrecy or hiding of information, if it's not available to you to understand and integrate, you can get caught up in systems of control that are molding you and reconfiguring you, and you don't understand deeply what's going on there. Like primary school's a little bit like that. You don't really understand some of the deeper principles of education and how it's trying to adapt and mold you and teach certain things and not others. But basically, when people keep secrets, there's a good side to that, privacy, and people have lost their privacy now because the government wants to monitor a lot more than it ever did before into your private life. But in the bad sense, when certain places and people know a lot more than anybody else, it gives them a power leverage, because it's kind of limiting what you can know about and integrate. So that's censorship and secrecy, how that controls people. Next one, the physical environment. Now this is a big one. In your homes and your communities, the way the physical environment is set up controls us. Disinformation. I don't know if you've heard academic people saying, well, you can't believe everything on YouTube and the internet. They're hinting that it's disinformation. If you want the truth, you've got to go to university. But that in itself is a fallacy. Anyway, because you can learn yourself once you start to learn how that works. You don't need formal teachers and degrees to come to understand the subject. If you keep pressing in long enough and learning the trivium, collecting the information, thinking about it and that kind of stuff, you can learn yourself. Right. Next one, competition. When the business world and how money, there's a lot of competition, and competition is quite stressful. It's not the best way for you to self-develop and grow and learn and just get knowledge and just be yourself. Is a better way, rather than getting into really competitive things where people are trying to win and other people lose. And next one, crowd control. Well, that's sort of like police skills, I guess, the military, how to control people, crowd control. Next one, agendas. So you know how the governments have got agendas like Agenda 21. They're trying to fix the world, heal the world, stop pollution. But those agendas are a bit deceptive and also a bit short-sighted, because I think even if we fix the world's environment and solved a lot of problems, we're making a mistake to think that life will all be good in a utopia, because the goodness of life is really coming from God and life, that grace that he gives to everything, to be able to enjoy things. Next one. So the mental health system, you've got a lot of drugs, and you've also got, outside of the mental health system, a lot of illegal drugs. I mean, you look at Philadelphia and how people are just dragged out on the street. I mean, drugs like fentanyl and heroin, and people are just, that is ruining their lives. So that's controlling them. And in the same way, the mental health system controls people with their drugs. Although I would take their drugs with a pinch of salt, because mental health drugs it's only like a little sliver. If you think of a pie diagram, well, the effect of mental health drugs is quite a small influence on those people, their environment, their friends, all that kind of thing. Hold on, and stop that noise. That beep. So moving on, money. How money is such a big part of control, the psychology of control. A lot of things that make things happen in the world. Money makes the world go round. And in a way, it really does. And a lot of people are very preoccupied with their jobs and money and what money can do. And so money's a big thing to do, factor. Yeah, I don't know if this is so much the psychology of control, but more like looking at violence and force, like war and the police and different things. But it plays into the psychology of control because people get scared and people, yeah. So anyway, next one. Oh, social capital, who you know. So who you're associating with all the time. And this is a big one. I had a nurse say to me, this is a psychiatric nurse, say, be careful who your friends are. Pick your friends carefully. And when you think about that, if you go right back to when you're a child and you're at primary school, and a primary school always has a few bad kids in it, right? And you go down, you get led down the wrong road. You start hanging out with these guys, and you get in trouble. You get in trouble with the police even, and people are telling you, be responsible. Don't hang around with the wrong people, because you go down the road with people, and you have friends when you're young. Those friends are gonna the peer pressure. They're gonna lead you into things, drugs, crime, all kinds of things that they can lead you into. And it's that principle that be careful who you associate with, because that's gonna influence you. So some other things that are kind of very subtle, colors. When we're watching advertisements, movies, the effect of different colors. Some colors pacify people. You may remember how some police, the color in their police stations years ago, pink and very strange mixture of pink and orange, how that affects people. And on television, which is a big one, the colors and the anyway, next one. Politics, ideologies, like capitalism, communism, that really deeply affects the whole society, right? Going back to the environment, that we get nudged the way people set up supermarkets, the way businesses are set up, where products are, and there's a whole psychology of selling that is affecting the controlling behavior. So another one is stories, rhetoric. Mainstream media, it's kind of, they have a nice way of presenting the news every night, but it may not be really, it's not really getting into the deeper truths about reality. They're not going to go into stories that independent journalists, remember those programs, 2020, and getting more really into the guts of reality. So the stories and narratives affect us. Government compulsory education has had a lot of wrong with it because of history and sort of dumbing down process. It's got to do with the idea that the government has to take responsibility to educate and shape the minds of people, that we're in other ideas that we're kind of inferior and we need controlling, and this is what you've got to do to people's minds to train them. That's affected. It's a factor, big factor in control. Threats like COVID-19. I mean, look at what that's done to the world. It's like turned the world upside down trying to manage COVID-19. Science and academia. There are facts about life, and they've got all the facts, and that's all good. Except this is where I'll come to this. But where is God? God's actually in control. God's at the center. God's got all power, infinite power, knowledge. The solar system's been operating for thousands of human lifetimes. God's got a very solid control of the universe and everything. God should be at the center, but in the universities they've taken God out of it, and that's not good for the world. Group mind, when you can't help but be controlled when you're with a crowd of people in a group or belong to groups. It's all affecting you. It's all feedbacking into you. You hear things. It's all a big it's called cybernetics, circular causal feedback mechanisms in society and in biological systems. So that's really getting more to the core of what control is about, the science of control. But again, they've left God out of it, and God's made nature. He's really in control. But if you take God out of it, you're reduced to understanding systems like what a computer does, like the fact that you're listening to me. If you're one of the few that you're being influenced by what I'm saying and what you're saying, and I might see that you've given my video a like, and there's a feedback. You may say something in return and give me some feedback, and there's always consequences. Even the managers of this world, by managing people, they're actually by the feedback loop, they're actually getting reconfigured as well by those who they manage. So it's really amazing, that thing. Political, of course, people believe that the governments of a nation is in control and they're regulating, and they are. And that's, although, yeah, there's a lot to that. Oops, I said that before. Let me get moving here. So media, the television, magazines, the radio, the news, Hollywood movies, it's all, when we watch them and get entertained, it's all feeding into us and configuring us and downloading on us. It's having a controlling effect. Enculturation, just growing up in Australia or New Zealand, you grow up in the culture, and it writes in kind of like into your circuits, if you like. If you think of a computer, it's rewriting. The enculturation in a way helps you to be who you are. It's not just the DNA and the enzymes and all this stuff. It's a fair bit to do with the environment again. Music. I don't know a lot about this, but there's a lot of knowledge about how music affects people. Sport. How a lot of young men and women are just into sport or watching sport like a religion. That's using up a lot of time and energy for those people, energy that maybe could be spent better in other pursuits. Corporations corporations are in institutions, massively controlling people, whether it's the mental health system or the army or education system. It's massively taking a person and shaping them. So there's some things here. This is just to describe what I know so far about the psychology of control. You've got people get into habits. We're always talking to our family or friends, and these conversations, they're massively affecting us, the way we know people close to us, and they're massively affected by talking to other people we know. We can get very hurt and wounded through that. This is where we're good listening skills, understanding people. Stress, obviously lots of stress is affecting us. Perhaps your boss at meetings. When you have a ratio of one person who's the outsider coming in 5 against 1, what other things here? different personalities. You know, like how everybody's a different person, and they talk about some people being psychopaths, narcissists. Um, the personality of the people that you're with really affects you. You know. So lies, like when people tell a lot of lies, but a lot of the lies they tell in their thinking, you know, they're called logical fallacies. Like people might in a debate, they might, rather than look at the subject that and the topic that you're claiming and speaking about, they'll instead give you feedback about you, attacking your own beliefs and position, rather than addressing what the point you're talking about, the subject. That's called ad hominem. It's a person against the man. And there's like a list of about 40 or hundreds of these logical fallacies, where if you're having a conversation with someone and it goes all irrational and messed up, you know, they're lacking critical thinking. Yeah. So that's about it. And I just I think it's important just to focus on how computers are affecting us, how the cell phones are affecting us. We learn from them, we feed back into them, and then we're talking to other people, and that's the way the world is now. And then our environment, where we live, what's around us, what street we live in, it all affects us. And sort of like because we have to look at what a human being is. Like you see, I've got eyes, I've got ears, my body, and medically, you know, I've got a lot of receptors stuck in the, well, creating my mind and consciousness, you know, and it goes into my head, and it's like the circuits inside a desktop computer or a phone or a laptop. There's all that circuitry in there that it takes in, it receives from the world, it processes it, and it's unbelievable what those machines, computers, cell phones do. And then they put out video or audio or whatever you're getting good use out of that phone for. And in the same way, the human beings got this nervous system, and we're sucking it in, the input, and then we come to an understanding, and then we might talk about it like I'm putting out now, a rhetoric or an output of communication. And this was a lot that came out of the study called cybernetics, started by Norbert Wiener, and they figured all that out. And then they were into researching this, the MK Ultra project, 1950s, where they took it further, and they were doing a lot of experiments on trying to understand how to control all the influences on a human mind and what can happen there. And nowadays they've moved on, and you know, we live in this world now where who knows how many thousands of ways there are of having goals and getting things controlled. I mean, and there's all fancy subjects around it, like information theory, game theory, all fancy, cool stuff, which is really interesting. But where it goes wrong again is, where is God in the picture? See, I know and believe that God is in control. He created the whole universe. So unless you can be connected and listen to Jesus, and that's the best instruction of wisdom there is on the planet. Listen to Jesus. Why? Because when Jesus went up a mountain with his disciples, James, John, and Peter, Jesus went up there to have a bit of time with God, and it was like a connection, like you know that movie called where the aliens come down, and it looks like the spaceship comes over and it's playing music. What, Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Well, this was this was not a bit like that, but he went up the hill. His clothing became wholly and dazzlingly white, and those men he took up there got buzzed out and said, and some people visited him from heaven. I think it was Moses and Elijah, and then God's presence came down on that mountain, and Jesus' Father told Peter, James, and John, this is my own dear son, listen to him. So, yeah. And so, in other aspects of this as well, I know as a Christian that I have a spirit inside me, and that spirit embodies me, and that's a level deeper than medically who I am to a well-educated doctor. They're going to understand a lot about me, my nervous system, just everything there is to know about the human body. But when they take out my spirit, my soul, because that's really what that exists, but science is not able to really understand that very well, and because of that, it's really a horrible world, because people are being treated more with less respect and dignity, because the most people are precious. Life is precious. People are precious, and they have a spirit and soul, and that's just not part of the equation in a lot of the worldly in the world. They're not seeing God, and they're not seeing the spirit in man. But if there's anything good about this, that is that God does exist, and we do have more to us. We are more than flesh and blood, so that's the good thing about that. Yeah, well, what can I say? I hope you enjoyed the information. I won't use any more of your time. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. Catch you later.